This is K-Rockcast, the podcast where music and perspectives collide.
I'm Anne, a music lover who's the ultimate fan.
And I'm Kelly, a professional musician. Join us as we dive into the world of the Rose and other Korean and Asian rock bands.
Sometimes we'll agree, sometimes we'll wildly disagree, but what's guaranteed is a passionate, hilarious, and unfiltered conversation about the music that unites us and the bands that inspire us.
On today's show,
my first concert ever was spent over the toilet. Try not to vomit out my intestines.
Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 23, Into the Garden, Black Rose. Kelly, I'm really excited. This is a special episode. We're going to solely focus on diving into the Rose's fan song, Black Rose, as well as hear from Black Roses. We have a couple interviews that we're going to be highlighting in today's episode, but also sharing as many as we can of the amazing stories that were sent to us by our listeners. So just want to say thank you to all the listeners that took time to send us your kind of perspective on the Roses music, what their music has meant to you. We know that you've taken that time and we really thank you. We wish we could read every episode, but we know we can't because we received so many submissions, didn't we, Kelly?
Today alone, I've had an additional 10 come through. So, I'm really not surprised by that.
So if you don't have your submission read in today's episode, we're also going to find other ways throughout our Instagram and other social media accounts to continually share the stories. So if we couldn't share it on air in the podcast, you'll likely see your story shared through other ways. And so thank you again for your dedication and sending us your submissions. So we're going to jump into the deep dive, Kelly. Let's start with a little bit of history on the song Black Rose that we're going to be covering today. So I think this is kind of interesting if we take our listeners back into where we've left off in the Roses story. In the Into the Windfall episode, we left off them going through their lawsuit with their first management company, Jay & Star Company. And so in February of 2020, the Rose filed for a termination of contract with Jay & Star. And, it really left them hanging, right, Kelly? They didn't know what was going to be the future of their band, whether they would be able to get out of that contract, whether they were going to be able to still record. And throughout this time, we also had Dojun, who went into his mandatory military service. He is a Korean citizen, and in that country, all males have a military duty. And so he left in July of 2020. So he was away. So on August 23rd, 2020, there was a digital single that was released by the Rose, and it was a song called Black Rose, dedicated to the fans. I'm sure this was a surprise. I can kind of imagine for fans at that time, they probably were surprised because if this lawsuit is going on, I'm sure the last thing fans expected was new music coming out by the Rose. What's your thought on them kind of releasing a song during this time of turmoil?
That's the absolute stamp of defiance and independence. This is the very first independent release. And this wouldn't have been a quick turnaround. They'll have been working at this for a while before it finally saw the light of day. And to have the gall and audacity to do it, well, we know what the guys are like. I mean, good on them for doing it.
I know. And I think it's interesting. I did some research and I was able to find that they put this out as a digital single and it was immediately taken down from streaming sites due to that contract dispute from Jay & Star Company. Obviously, it is out now, so the single was later brought back. I wasn't able to find how long that took, whether that had to be at the end of the contract dispute or whether, it was able to come back up sooner. But I think kind of goes into what you just said, Kelly, right? Like I just always respect that so much from the Rose. So when they released this on August 23rd, 2020, it was right after their third anniversary. So this was kind of a message out to fans at where they were at this time at their third anniversary. And they put out such a lovely letter to fans on their Instagram account. Kelly, why don't you read that to us?
Yeah, of course. Hello, our lovely Black Roses. It's already a third year walking together on this beautiful road to wherever the destination may be. Every day has been such a blessing for us since we met. Thank you always for being by our side through all the ups and downs. With every journey, there is a detour or a resting period. We think with the members going into the army, now is the right time for us to just sit wherever we are and enjoy the view that we are not able to see while moving forward. There are things we can learn and experience only when we stop and take the time to appreciate. We really hope that we can come out of this and tell you guys all about our experiences. Until then, we've prepared a little gift for our Black Roses, which we hope to reveal soon. Miss you. See you in a bit.
This was 5 years ago now.
I know.
Reading this now after seeing the documentary film, and we covered that in detail in our Into the Tribeca episode. So if listeners haven't listened to that episode, you definitely should check it out. But the line that gets me, Kelly, in this letter is, we really hope that we can come out of this and tell you guys all about our experiences.
Yeah,
And it took them
definitely.
time.
Yeah, and as I've said to you, I mean, normally when you file these types of agreements and lawsuits and everything else, there is always a period of time where you are not allowed to disclose information that may be classed as defamatory towards either party. So that might be why it's taken 5 years to get this information out.
Yeah. But I feel like that just like really struck me because I have heard the members share as they have been talking about the documentary film. It's just was very important for them to be transparent and candid. And I think they
Mm.
even wanted the film to go even deeper
Yeah.
into sharing what happened. But as I shared in the episode into the Tribeca, wow. I mean, what they endured through the time with Jay and Star, it was traumatizing for
Mhm.
them. And so I feel like now that we're covering this song, I think I looked at the song with a whole new perspective, knowing that information. So I'm excited to do this deep dive and kind of dig into the meaning behind the song. I think let's start with the name Black Rose. And I think this is an important part of the song itself, because I think the meaning behind that term in Korean culture is connected to the major theme in this song. There's a term Black Knight for a man and Black Rose for a woman. And so there's a pretty strong drinking culture in Korea. And if you're out with a group of people and someone pours you a drink, there's an expectation that you drink. It can be seen as rude to turn down that drink. And so instead of turning down that drink, you may turn around, and seek out a person to drink for you. And so when that person steps up and drinks on your behalf, they are known as the Black Knight if they're a man, or a Black Rose if they're a woman. And so the connotation there is kind of this other person has your back. This other person, it's a protecting, right? And so, they have shared in interviews that they picked that name because that is the type of relationship they wanted to have with their fans. And also, I think there's some significance of Black Rose meaning like endless love. But I feel like it's the first explanation that I mentioned in Korean culture that's kind of connected to this song. So Kelly, why don't you go into, let's start with kind of the melody and instrumentation analysis.
Yeah, so the songwriting, the arranging, and the composing, surprise, surprise, is all done by the Rose. And this is because it was done on the hush hush, keep it quiet.
Yeah.
So nobody else was involved. The recording of this would have been done, I would have thought, primarily in the apartment. um,
Yeah. And,
yeah,
kind of interestingly, like if Dojun had left in July of this year, I guess he would I mean, it would have had to have been done before he left
oh
because
yeah,
he's the main
yeah,
producer.
definitely. And I mean, this would have just been done as a digital release. It would have just been put out through DistroKid or CD Baby or something like that.
Mm.
And but the only thing is to be aware of when you upload as an artist, there are certain codes. It's a little bit like a library book in the sense of the book has the ISDN and music does a very similar thing as well that ties it back to the author of the music. So that will have been why it was picked up and taken down very, very quickly
Mhm.
following its release. So the actual track is in the key of F minor and it is 136 beats per minute. But you'll find that the piano is kind of done in half time, so it's done at 68 beats per minute.
That's interesting. I didn't when you said those beats per minute, it felt fast.
It
But I
is
guess
it
I
is fast, but I mean that's just more like the
yeah.
repetitive rhythm. If you're going to count it, that's the
Yeah.
beats per minute that it is.
I think my ear just is that piano melody. I feel like that's what, like, catches your ear, so maybe that's why
Yeah,
I'm
and
thinking
that's
it's
why it is.
slower
Yeah, and
beats
that's why
per
you think
minute.
it's lower because it's running at halftime.
I think the start of this piano melody is so lovely.
It's beautiful. It's very simple. It's just a little
Yeah.
piano run. But I think that's kind of what you need it to be because I don't think this song is anything overblown. It's nothing complicated.
Mhm.
It's a simplistic harmony with a nice message. And
Mhm.
that's not to distract from what it is at all. There's a reason that it's like that because if you overcomplicate the music, you then lose the message of what you're trying to get across. So it's a very
Yeah.
clever combination of the two.
Yeah, I think that to me, the simplicity was, as you're saying, like the instrumentation needed to be sat in the background. So I feel like from a mixing standpoint, it's the instrumentation is more prominent during the chorus and then during the verses, that instrumentation, that melody is in the
Yeah,
background so that the vocals are
that
pushed forward and
yeah, that's just
more in the
traditional.
forefront.
Yeah, that's just traditional songwriting, though. To be honest, that's what you do. You allow the message to breathe, and normally that is during
Mhm.
the actual verses. So they've just done the usual trick with this one, to be
I
honest.
think the strum guitar is really lovely.
Yes,
I like that. I like that sound
it
throughout.
is, and it adds that percussive element to it as well, which really helps, and it drives the song forward.
Mhm.
Because the drums aren't up front and center in this. It really sits back in the groove.
Right. Yeah.
So it
Yeah, I
needs
think that's
that little extra sort of oomph that does come from that sort of string sound.
yeah, I would agree. I think this is mainly that piano melody and kind of that strummed, like,
Yeah,
guitar,
exactly. Yeah.
sound. I like it about 3 minutes. I feel like there's this swell in the melody, and it then kinda pushes then through the end of the song. Um, I like the vocals, this "Tell me it's okay," like, that part of the
Yeah.
vocals, it really evokes a lot of emotion, I think, when you're
Yes.
listening to
Yeah.
this song.
And it's the
Um
refrain sort of as you come out of what is in essence a
Mhm.
bridge section. And it's needed because of the simplicity of the song. You need that sort of push to drive it forward again. But that's how the song hits. And if you're clever
Mhm.
and you understand songwriting, you know that you've got to have an emotional peak in it, and that's the emotional peak of the song.
Yeah, especially when Dojun's vocals say, "Don't be afraid." Oh, I love that part. That is like my favorite part of the song. And then at the end, they do this I think they do this so well. And some of this is just Sammy's voice style, his singing style, we've described it a lot as
Yeah.
very haunting. He can do that haunting delivery
Yeah.
so well. And so again, this song ends with the melody all stripped down, and it's that lone piano and his vocals. And I think that it's almost like, to me in this one, it's almost like a whisper. It's
Yeah,
almost like
he pushes
whisper talking, singing.
he pushes a lot of air over his larynx to create that
Yeah.
sound. So it would have been very up
Yeah.
close and personal with the actual pop sock on the microphone to get that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something he's very good at. He understands the dynamics of his voice very, very well and how to use it. So I'm not surprised by that.
Well, let's go into then the lyrics of this song. I think it's interesting. Up to this point, they had predominantly written their songs in Korean. California was an all English song. And when we did our deep dive into the Red, we kind of talked about the reasoning behind writing that song in English. But I think everything else up to that point had been predominantly Korean. Now, this song is about half and half.
Yeah.
And so
Which
reflecting on that now, it's kind of interesting.
I think they needed to do half and half, though, because I think they needed to talk to a larger audience with this.
Yeah, it's like I'm looking back at this now with all of this kind of, dialogue you and I have had in several episodes of this podcast about their use of Korean lyrics
Yes.
over English lyrics. And, the guys have been asked that quite a bit on this tour in the Q&A from fans about why they don't have Korean lyric songs. And I think a big message that they say as a reason why is because they know a majority of their listening audience speak English.
Yes.
And the lyric content and the meaning behind what they want to say in their song is important to them, and it can best be conveyed in English than in Korean and thusly translated. And so now, like, looking back at thinking of that, now looking at this song, I think you're right. I think that's probably why they decided deliberately, I think, to make a lot of this song in English. Let's go over the lyrics. Let's kind of start it at the beginning. Hello, I'm calling. Follow me under the rain. We're pulling through the painful thorns again and again. I'm drowning below the shallow water, but you take my hand and you pull me aside. I thank you always that you've saved me from tears again and again. What's your take on those lyrics, Kelly?
I think it's very sort of obvious in relation to where they are at the time. I mean, literally the only thing that's keeping them from going insane is the fan base. I think that's what is keeping them mentally afloat, really. Because it must have been a horrible situation to have been in, knowing everything that was going off, but actually knowing, you know what, we want to make music and we've got people out there that we can make music for. And it's very much how shall I put it? It's the MO. We've got the rain there, we've got the tears there, we've got the thorns, we've got, you know what I'm saying. I mean, the imagery is the data bank of imagery that they frequently fall back on. So it makes sense. And it's a universal language as such that they share with their audience. They're not going out of the way and creating a new narrative, should I say, to explain what's happening. They're explaining it in a narrative that's already accepted as such.
Yeah, I like the use of the language from what's familiar, as you're kind of saying, like, follow me under the rain. Like, to me, the song She's in the Rain was I would say probably their biggest hit, maybe up to this
definitely,
point. And so it's like now they're saying kind of to like, in that perspective, it was them talking to the listener.
Oh, definitely.
And now they're saying, we're in the rain. Like,
hold our hand
here
through this. Yeah, exactly.
Hold our hand through this. We've held you through it. And we're looking for that support from you. And I think that is impactful. And then again, that I'm drowning below the shallow water, but you take my hand, and I thank you. So I think that that is them kind of recognizing the support. They always say, their fans walk with them on this journey.
Yes.
And yeah. Then the next lines are in Korean. So this is the translation. My pain, your wound, even the rose petals that were red fell. They are tinged, colored black. I'll protect you forever. Your words that made me live. Thank you so much. Any thoughts on those?
Again, I don't want to sound like a stuck record, but it is harping back to their story, back to this narrative language that they've instilled and still use to this day. I don't want to say it's cliche because that's rude of me, in a way, because I think it's trying to get over. It's trying to get over a sense of feeling, a sense of need, and a sense of. I mean, what they said in the letter, to be perfectly honest, we don't know where we're going to go, what's next.
Yeah.
But it is just sort of highlighting the fact that, it might all look terrible at the moment, but, we believe there's going to be potential blooming in the future. And I think we can honestly say that they've just gone through this transformation again prior to World coming out. This isn't new.
Mm-hmm.
And they
Yeah.
do kind of fall back onto it.
For me, these lyrics align with the meaning of Black Rose or Black
Yes.
Knight. I think to me that's what they're saying of I'll protect you forever. Your words that made me live. Kind of, them saying we're gonna look after you guys, because your support over these years have allowed us to kind of carry on and carry through
Yeah.
that kind of symbiotic, relationship. And then really the rest of the song is that refrain. This is where the swell of emotion builds up,
Yes.
and what we talked about with the melody. And they just keep saying over and over again, tell me it's okay. Don't be afraid. Nobody can take away. Take away. Love is the way. And they kind of repeat that, and then it ends with, don't you be afraid. Don't be afraid. Nobody can take away. Love is the way. And they end with, hello, a little far away. Don't worry about us. That's kind of that whisper talking that Sammy does at the end, which is so hauntingly beautiful. Yeah. And again, I think I love this kind of focus on, we don't know, as you said, where we'll go, what the future will bring. But don't worry, they're now, they asked at the beginning to be comforted, but I think they end the song
By comforting the listeners. Yeah, I completely agree.
Listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I love that, turning that around, even though we'll be a little far away. To me, that's like, we might not be able to be visual to you. We can't go on tour. We might not be able to engage with you, but we're here, and don't worry about us.
I mean, to make it as Yorkshire as possible, I mean, the bottom line might as well just be right.
For those listeners who don't speak British, can you translate that for us?
Be right. It means everything will be okay in the end. Be right. And that is literally used whether you've accidentally just dropped something on the floor and you've now got to tidy it up, or whether you have literally stood outside as you've watched your entire house burn to the ground. Berate's used for everything.
Oh, yeah. And I think you kind of said this when we were doing our discussion from the documentary film, that, on the outside, you can see this song obviously as a song that they wrote in dedication to their fans. But now, knowing what they went through, I can see this as them talking to each other.
There is definitely that. It's a love song between themselves. I completely and utterly agree with that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the feeling of a swan song though, because it
What
could
does that
very
mean, a swan
easily have
song?
a swan song is the last song that an artist would create. So the idea of a swan song goes back to Swan Lake and the last
Mm,
stanza of music before the death
mm.
of the swan. And it hasn't quite got that refrain of cheerio, farewell. It's not got that. It's got that sort of, we're just going to have to close the curtains for a minute or two while we sort some shit out behind here and then we'll be back.
Yeah.
It has got more of that refrain about it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think even though they didn't know whether they would ever to come back as a band, whether they would be able to perform again as the Rose, I think they obviously always had that hope, because I agree with you. It's a see you later, not a goodbye.
Yeah. I mean, I've literally got Oliver going through my head now.
Oliver.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's why they ended their letter, "Miss you, see you in a bit."
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
They're even saying it in that letter to fans when they release the song, that it's not, a goodbye, but
Yeah.
a see you
No,
again.
it definitely isn't. And um, worst case scenario, worst case scenario for them would have been they may have lost the court case. They may have ended up being sued.
Mhm.
If you don't have that money, they can't claim it off you anyway. Simple as that. If you haven't got the money at the time, they can't take it off you. If you've not got it, there you go. They would have lost the band name and they would have had to have started again from scratch under a different alias. And that would have
If
been
they could have even,
if they were
you
mentally
know?
prepared to do it.
Yeah.
So that's worst case scenario. And it happens, we've heard of it happening
Mhm.
before. Um, but yeah, it was definitely ta-ra for now, we'll be back.
Yeah, and knowing that, Dojun had already left, Hajun and Taegyum were getting ready to leave. I think that is some sadness there too, right? Like
Yes.
they were actually leaving, and Sammy left Korea and went back to the United States
Yeah.
during this time too. So there's even the physical leaving of all of them,
Yeah.
the four men leaving each other
Yes.
physically for 2 years.
Yeah.
They didn't really
Which
come back
which fit
together.
very, very well with COVID.
Mhm.
They were lucky with
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah. But their time apart as a group, during all of this as well. So even for them, them being far away from each other,
Yeah, but
during this too.
I'm not jesting by saying it was very, very lucky during COVID. It was lucky during COVID that all of this happened because actually it happened to every single band out there. How many
Mhm. Yeah.
bands actually live together? There's not many. And most top end professional acts live on different continents from each other. So they would have all been in the same situation anyway. The timing of this was perfect for them. Absolutely
Mhm.
perfect.
Yeah, cuz all bands at that time, couldn't go out and perform.
No, exactly. There was no performing, there was no rehearsing, there was
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it
exactly.
didn't hold them back.
No.
Well, that's it. I think this song, do you listen to this song regularly? Is it in your
Yeah,
rotation,
no,
Kelly?
it's in rotation. Yeah, I listen to this one. I really like this track. I think it's one of those that's sort of it's on in the background. I enjoy it while it's on. It's not necessarily one of those that I'll stop what I'm doing when it's on, if you know what I mean, but I do enjoy it while it's playing.
Mhm. I like this song too. Um, yeah, I like this one. I think like you said, it's simple, it's pretty straightforward. But I think it's meaningful and I think it
Yes.
resonates with fans. I think Black Roses really love this song.
Yeah.
All right, so now let's hear from some Black Roses. So we're going to go into one of our interview segments. Welcome to K-Rock Cast, Maggie. Thank you for joining us and sharing your story as a Black Rose and what the Rose's music means to you. Why don't you start by introducing yourself to our listeners and tell us how you discovered the Rose and how their music has impacted your life?
So hi, thanks to you for having me. I'm Maggie. I am a British Italian journalist, like a real one, a press card holder one. And yes, I write about Korean culture, Korean entertainment in Korean magazines, British magazines, and Italian magazines. Um, I don't do only Korean cultures, of course, as a journalist, but I became the Korean expert mainly in the within the British Association. And yeah, so when did I started? So I met the first time Rose's music a few years back, I think in 2018, and it was a very peculiar period of my life. I was going through probably the saddest period of my life, professionally and personally. I lost a very important person, and I went through breakup of a very important relationship. All of that on the same
Mhm.
period. And I was talking to you guys offline. I live in London and I live in Notting Hill. And as much as cliche as it could sound, I was literally walking Kensington Gardens, and that's a very long walk. Kelly, you know
It is
very
a
much about
very,
it
very
because
long walk.
it's a very long walk because it's Kensington Gardens, Hyde Park, Green Park, and then you get to Buckingham Palace. So whenever I am down or I am sad, that is the walk I go through because it helps me think. And that specific day I was wearing my AirPods, I was just walking, and the algorithm decided that She's in the Rain was going to pop.
Oh, wow.
And that was it. The She's in the Rain, I know a little bit of Korean. It was the very first time I was listening to it by listening to the lyrics.
Mm,
So not
mm.
only listening like a passive listener, it was
Yeah,
an active listening. And I found myself crying,
yeah.
crying in the middle of Kensington Gardens without any care of who was around me. And that was the very first time I was allowing myself to cry and to break down and to
Mm,
say, hey, it's okay,
yeah,
you're allowed to. And that was my first that is the day the Rose became who they are for me.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked about that in the Into the Dawn episode with that song, Maggie, that there's just something about the emotion that that song conjures in the listener, and there's so many Black Roses that have shared similar stories of how you don't even need to necessarily know the meaning of the lyrics
It's
to
just, yeah,
have that song move that emotion in your heart for sure.
it was so peculiar because I would say it was life changing for me because I always try to be the strong one, and I don't break down. I get things done. I don't allow for my emotions to come out that
Mm,
often. And I think that was kind of a therapy to me, like because I felt it was okay. So there was the line that they say, "It's better to be held than holding on." That
Mm,
was literally what struck me,
yeah,
and it because
mm,
they were not trying to fix me. So the fact that it felt like it was just a friend saying, "Hey, I'm here. I'm not trying to
yeah,
fix you. I'm not gonna tell you be strong. You're gonna get through this. Time will heal you." No, it's a fucked up situation.
yeah,
yeah,
You're allowed to feel like this way.
yeah.
You're allowed to feel all this emotion, and you're allowed to cry most of all. And I think that's the thing that changed me. That I
Yeah.
allowed myself to feel the
To
pain
feel
and to
again.
show that pain.
Yeah. And I
mhm.
should imagine working in such an analytical world as well when it comes to being a journalist to actually allow yourself that moment of freedom and expression, even if it is an explosion of emotion. It takes everything, and I think that is very much testament to how the guys write, not just lyrics but also how they write their music as well, because there is something in the way that they have the ability to just generate an emotion and this drive as they're writing. So
Mm.
I mean, we've frequently spoken, haven't we, about how whether it's English or Korean and which lyrics work best in this world. And I don't think it matters, because the music underneath it is still that driving force.
Mhm.
And then you've got the beauty of that one lyric, which I think hits everybody. It really does.
It does, and it's really impressive the way that uh, it feels like they are talking to you. I think that's
Yes.
the peculiarity of the rose. The difference between like
Mm.
the rose differentiator is like they are having a conversation with you. And it's a two-way conversation. It's not a one-way conversation. And as you mentioned, for I what I do for a living um, imposes me to be very analytical, and especially when I'm writing reviews of albums of that could space from Western music to Asian music, not only Koreans, is a peculiar attention to the words and that are being used in a lyric. And the thing that made me a Black Rose, and I'm very proud to say so. I shouldn't fangirl too much because I'm still a journalist at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I really hope my boss wouldn't listen to this. Sorry, boss. This is my fangirl space. It is that type of conversation, and I think that's the thing that I love about them. It feels like, and you can say it's the Lulu, no? But I think that's two-way conversation of how it's impressive how easily it comes to them to
Mhm.
talk to you through their
Yes.
music about
Yeah.
something that you are going through. So it takes honesty to do something like that. You really need
Yeah.
to have honest people on the other side to be
Yeah.
able to convey such
Yeah.
honesty to you
It,
and to
it
us
Yeah.
as listeners.
it speaks very much of people who've gone through all of these things. It's not being written from a standpoint of some beautiful form of gothic poetry or anything like that. I mean, this is literally emotions down on paper and then transposed to music, and you can tell that. And I think that's why so many people just bond with it, especially that
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're very transparent, they're very authentic, they're very genuine. I think they write from an emotive level.
Hmm.
Sammy always says when he writes, he thinks about the human experience, and that's where he's coming from. And I think that's why we as listeners then gravitate to it, because that it's a common experience, as you just said, Kelly. We all can
Yeah.
relate to that. And I think one of the things I've always respected about the Rose is, they are very brave in the topics that they talk about, particularly as Korean artists.
Oh God, yes.
Some topics that are very taboo in Korean society. I think from the start, they have always been in the forefront of being willing to be honest and say things that not everybody else, is willing to say. I think they did it in the World album
Mm.
as well. Very proud of a lot of the messages, both internal struggles that they obviously have been going through, but talking about the external struggles in our society that they're calling out in
Yeah.
in some of their songs on the World album as well. Very proud of them for that.
I think the World album is. We were talking about this offline. That is them going back to their core. It's literally them. I think they wrote this album as themselves, like they wanted to bring out who they really are, and without thinking too much about what they would say, what would people who will listen would say about it, or the critics, or even the industry. How would they? It was literally them back to being the boys that were basking in Hongdae at the beginning
Yeah.
of their career. It feels so personal. It feels so deep. And also, if you look at the setting of their tour, it's literally like the studio, like the one bedroom place where they used to write their songs, and that's pretty telling about the message they wanted to convey. And I think it's one of the most intimate, if not the most intimate album I've heard
Oh
of
yeah.
of the Rose.
Yes. It
Oh
is.
yeah. I completely agree. Yeah, which is why I think we said on the podcast, we completely understand why they wanted to do much smaller venues. That was not popular with fans to be doing these smaller venues. And I think the show would not, and the album would not have translated well in an arena. This
I
show
totally
is
agree.
not an arena show. So yeah.
I
Yeah.
totally agree. I think it's the way they build this bond with their fans and with us, who just, even with with someone who's not a fan, who's just listening to them. It's very peculiar because they, if we look at their career, they grew a lot in terms of following, or in terms of fan
Mhm.
base, etc. And they are much more famous now than 5 or 6 years ago. And the fact that they had two dates in London is pretty telling.
Yeah.
And I think is the peculiarity, and what makes them different from other artists is the fact that they want to cultivate this closeness with their fan base, with their people, and the fact that they chit chat during the concert with us, which you wouldn't have been able to do to in a stadium or in an arena,
Yeah.
because you would hear just screams. You wouldn't be able to hear the answers from the audience, and I think that connection is what make them so special, at least from
Yeah.
my perspective.
Yeah.
I definitely think so. Now, you mentioned to us before we started recording that you got to talk with some other Black Roses while you were at the London
I
show to hear more
did.
people's stories. Is there anything you kind of
Oh,
want to share?
yeah. It was so the London experience was literally a very first time for me to leave a concert from the emotional perspective. So, as I
Mm.
said, I went there as a journalist, first and foremost, but I realized that I was there as a Black Rose at the end of the evening. So it was such a funny day, because as a journalist I was hunting for a story, and I was so worried that I wouldn't have had a story to tell for my article. And so I lined up like every other Black Rose that was there on that day, and I got adopted by a group of British Black Roses, and they told me a lot of very beautiful stories. Two of them struck me. One is from Katie. She's a British young girl. She's a very nice lady, and she told me how Red and Time
Mm.
made her go through a difficult moment of her life, which was life changing, because she was moving away from the UK to go study abroad. So
Mm.
she was off to an adventure of a lifetime, where it was a major change. She knew no one. She didn't have friends. She was leaving behind everything that she knew for something that she didn't know. And Time and Red allowed her to get through that. So from the travels to the very first day that she was trying to get by in her new place. And what struck me in her story was, Meg, I had a lot of anxiety, she said. And it was really very difficult for me. It took everything I have to make that decision. It was a leap, and if the rose wouldn't have been there, she would have given up. So
Mm. Yeah. It's amazing how music can do that for us. Just be such a comfort. That's the thing about the Rose. They from the beginning have had a really strong mission. I think that's part of why I gravitate to them. I'm a mission-driven person, and they from day one have had a true mission for their music, and that is
mm,
healing through music. And I think when you have a strong mission, then that's what people can get behind, right? People gravitate to that. Yeah.
and I think that message of healing, which is not it's not a topic very common or easy
Mm.
to talk about, or even
Yeah.
to put into music in a society like Korea, where perfection is what
Mm.
you're after. That anything that is less than perfect feels like a failure.
Mm.
So if it's either you win or you're nothing. And healing is such a it's such a fragile emotion to talk
Yeah.
about. So it's very much in contrast of what the normal society looks like. I'm glad that it's the beginning of a change in the Korean society of talking about, how important it is to look after your mental health, how important it is to admit that everyone needs healing, not that everyone's life is not perfect, and that's okay. And going through the path of healing yourself, it takes time, it takes help, so it's okay for it. And I think what the Rose do with their music is bring that fragility out and make it feel as if it's normal, it's okay, you don't have to be strong all the time.
Yeah, I completely agree. Oh, Maggie, thank you so much. If you listen to our podcast, we like to end with a fun would you rather. So I thought with our guests, we would do the would you rather for you. So I'm not going to put Kelly on the spot this time.
I've escaped!
I am putting you on the spot. So, okay, ready, Maggie? Would
Oh my
you
gosh.
rather be locked in a tiny elevator with Hajun, in which he talks to you in corny dad jokes? He's going to tell you a corny dad joke every 5 minutes, and you're locked in this elevator. Or you are sharing a cabin with Taegyum, and you're on the top bunk, he's on the bottom, and he snores like a chainsaw all night.
I'll go with the dad jokes. The reason why is because, okay, I am a journalist. I don't have I don't have a very good sleep pattern. So sleep is kind of sacred to me. I cannot hear any type of noise for me to be able to sleep. So as much as I love Taegyum, I really adore him. He's probably one, yeah, after Sammy, I think he is the one for me. Don't edit this, Kelly, please. This is a secret. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be fired for this. I'm fangirling. I'm fangirling now. So I think
I don't know. Does he look like a snorer? I felt like he looked. Is this bad for me? Is this why I don't care? I'll let her keep this in. They don't listen to this podcast. But anyway,
Yeah, you're fine. They don't
I
listen
feel
to
like
us.
he looks like the one that would snore the loudest out of the group. I don't know why I felt that way,
don't
but I was
know.
like, who am I throwing under the bus on this? Would you rather?
No, I think it would be Sammy. I don't know why. I think Sammy would be the snore kind of guy. And even something worse than
Smothering
snore.
one of them. Whoever it was, I'd be smothering them. I'm a light sleeper. That pillow would be over.
I cannot. I don't.
I'm with you,
look,
Maggie. I can't stand anybody snoring.
No,
Like-
I can't stand humans sharing my room. Can you? I mean, even if it's Jeff. Okay, I look, as much as, yeah, but dad jokes probably would be more tolerable for me. I would probably have like a articaria at the end of the elevator travels afterwards. But yeah, I think I will. I am likely to survive an elevator filled with dad jokes rather than a night of snoring and something else. So
Yeah.
All right.
they're gonna fire me. They're gonna ban me. I'll be blacklisted by the Black Rose after this.
Wanting that interview.
Are you the girl? You know that interview that you were been begging us for? Forget about it.
Oh, thank you so much, Maggie. It was such a pleasure
Thanks
to talk
to
with
you.
you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
having me.
All right, Kelly, let's read some of the amazing submissions that we received from Black Roses about how the Roses music has impacted their lives. And I just want to say a huge thank you to all of our followers and our listeners who submitted such amazing, heartfelt stories for this Into the Garden project. I mean, Kelly, we are astounded by the sheer volume of submissions, aren't we?
Yeah, it was insane. The email inbox was full. So thank you, people. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we can't read all of them then on air, which I don't know that we expected to get so many. So we have picked some of the ones that we felt would speak maybe most to the most variety of our listeners. But it doesn't mean that your submission wasn't read by Kelly and I. You know, we read them all. And we're also going to be using submissions in different ways. So even if we don't read it today in this episode, look out, follow us on our social media sites. We're going to be putting out content, whether it's in posts or reels, to continue to share your stories out. And I will say, listeners, with a little help from the universe, we did manage to pass all of the submissions on to the guys. So without further ado, Kelly, why don't you kick us off with our first submission?
Right, so here we go. Hello, Anne and Kelly. I'm Kai. First of all, I just want to say I really enjoy your podcast. Thank you, Kai. That's really sweet of you. Listening to other
Thank you, Kai.
Listening to other Black Roses share their thoughts and stories always brings me comfort and makes me feel closer to the fandom and to the Rose. Thank you for creating such a meaningful space. I first discovered the Rose during my high school days about 5 years ago. At the time, I was just starting to explore Korean bands, and the first song I listened to was She's in the Rain. I didn't know much about them yet, but that song really stayed with me. It spoke to emotions I couldn't put into words. Early this year, during my internship, I started listening to them again. I was going through a tough time, and then that's when I found the Heal album. It truly felt like it found me at the right moment, and the album helped me cope with everything I was feeling, especially the burnout, loneliness, and emotional exhaustion I felt during that period. Later on, I watched their Heal project and learned that Seesaw was based on Taegum's story. He's actually my bias, so that moment hit me even harder. I cried watching the episode because I could genuinely relate to what he felt. The way he opened up and the way the members supported him reminded me so much of my own best friend, who has always been there for me through every high and low. Since then, that song has felt even more personal. It reminds me of my best friend and how lucky I am to have someone like her in my life. That night, after rewatching the episode and listening to the song again, I decided I wanted to fully support the Rose. That was the moment I became a Black Rose. Their music heals me in ways I don't even know I need. Thank you so much for reading my story. Keep doing what you love. Your podcast is something I always look forward to.
Well, that was so lovely. Thank you, Kai.
That's so lovely
What a
of you.
great
Thank you,
story.
sweetheart.
Yeah. I think what resonated with me, I felt like I connected to Kai's story about watching the Heal project.
Yeah.
And really, after watching that, how they became a Black Rose, I like what they say. I decided I wanted to fully support the Rose.
Yeah.
I love those words.
I know.
Yeah.
Why do we do that? Is it a cult? It's a cult, isn't
I
it?
don't know.
I know there's cults in Korea.
It
This
is
is a cult, isn't it? It is, isn't
It's
it?
called
This
the
is
Rose
what's
effect. It is a real thing.
Why
I
are
have
we
to
doing this
say,
again?
I
Why?
relate to that. I relate to that too, because I think I did the same. Like, I discovered the Heal project, and once I watched that content, I was in.
All in.
I think that content, it totally communicates their vision and mission as a band with what they want to achieve with their music, and they do it so well through that content that was it for me. That was my hook. I was gone. So, yeah. Thank you, Kai. All right, Kelly, let's go into our next submission by a Black Rose that you and I both know pretty well.
We do. We know this lady well. And the weird thing is, I literally read the first paragraph and I thought, I know who this one is. I not even got to the from bit and I knew exactly who it was from. Right. So this is from one of our dear friends, Irina. Irina, my darling, I love you. That's all I'm going to say. Right. One thing the Rose may not be aware of is the impact that they have on people's lives. Hajun mentioned in one of the recent Q&As, one thing music means to him is that it brings people together. But I wonder whether they're aware of the measure to which this is true for their music. I have made the most beautiful friendships on the Rosarium. which soon turned into real life friendships at a stage in my life when I thought I would only lose more friends for different reasons. But in fact, I have more friends now than I think I have ever had before. They form an orbit around me like the rings of Saturn. Some are very close to me, and we're constantly in touch and share everything with each other across oceans and continents. Thanks to the internet, and the others are a bit further away, and our friendship is a little bit more loose, but there's great harmony and understanding between all of us. And I've noticed our group of friends is not the only one. There are so many Black Roses who say they've met their new best friends or soulmates in the fandom. And this is thanks to the music of the Rose and their message. They bring together like-minded people that might otherwise not have known one another. Isn't that great? I think the Rose need to know that. Love, Irina.
You're so spot on with that. I love what she says, Kelly, about this point in her life. She might have more friends now than she ever has. I kind of feel that way too.
I know.
And you think you kind of think as you get older that it's harder to meet people, right? Like you maybe have less opportunities, but I think the Rose's music just brings people together. Like she says, like-minded people from all over the world. And then you just form this friendship that maybe starts off as the music, but then it's interesting how it goes beyond music.
I never thought I would
true friendship.
Yeah, I never thought I'd end up in a group of cheerleaders. Come on, run about me. I'm like, literally, I am the epitome of a tomboy. Anybody who knows me knows it.
Love it. Well, thank you, Irina, for such a beautiful submission. All right, Kelly, these stories have been such a fun part of this episode. Why don't you take us into our next one?
So this next one is a snippet from an actual letter, and this is from Bita in Poland. The Rose, not idols, fellow humans on a journey of discovery and healing who want to encourage others to live their best lives. We rose you. The crowd swayed, sang along, smiled with tears in their eyes. I watched them and felt the energy slowly pull me in. Just being in that space with people who were feeling deeply, openly, was healing in a way I really didn't expect. It was like someone pressed pause on all the chaos in my mind and something unexpected happened. I sang along. What makes them different isn't just their sound, though their music is stunning, textured and beautifully composed, but their sincerity? They're not polished, puppets, or choreographed perfection. They're human. They write from pain, love, fear, and hope, and don't pretend to be anything else. Thank you, Bita.
Wow, Bita. I couldn't say that better. And, we always call them a beautiful mess, Kelly. And I think Bita articulated that so much better than maybe me calling them a beautiful mess. But that's kind of what I mean, I think, when I say that, right? Is I do love that they aren't polished and it's not always perfect. It's they're human. And I love that she says they write from pain.
They're completely and utterly human. All four of them have been through stuff like everybody else who is out there in the world. We've all experienced things, and you can either live through it and learn lessons from it and guide other people with it and become a better person at the end of the day. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that life gets easier because you can go through it and survive it, or there's other people that dwindle in it. But we can honestly say those four guys know that they can heal through writing music, and doing that also allows everybody else to as well. So well done, gents. Well done.
All right, Kelly, let's take a break and move into something a little bit different. So listeners, Kelly and I had the pleasure of attending the LA show together.
Woohoo!
Yay! Yay! And we attacked Black Roses on the street. One of the Black Roses we spoke to about how the Roses music has impacted her life.
Hi, I'm Kelly. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Jolly.
Nice to meet you. So, we're going to ask people questions during the day, and one of the questions we really want to know is how people found the Rose. So what's your story of finding their music?
Well, I follow a boy group from Korea, and unfortunately, in 2023, one of them died in a very sadly way. We don't know how happened, but it was a very dark moment for me because I reached them during the COVID time, and they bring me joy in that dark moment at that dark moment. And when this guy died, Moonbin from Astro, was like I cried oceans, and I felt like I can enjoy music and a lot of stars again. And one of my Aroha friends at that moment, she was Black Rose too. And she recommended me, you need to hear this K indie band. They are the Rose, and I think that as the way that they are healing me in this moment, I think that they help you with your duel at this moment. So I start. She sent me a playlist thinking in my state of mind at that moment, and was like a full embrace of love, and it was like oh my god, where are they all my life? That this is my first time hearing, and was love at first sight. So at that moment I started considering me a Black Rose.
And now we have a lovely email from Marlene.
Dear K-Rock Cast team, my name is Marlene, and I'd like to share how the Roses' music became a light in one of the darkest moments of my life. I was married to the love of my life for 26 years. Sadly, he passed away from cancer, and the grief left a hole in my heart that I didn't know how to heal. I felt lost, like I had no strength to go on. That's when I discovered the Rose. Their music touched something deep inside me. The lyrics, the melodies, and the emotions in their voices made me feel understood. It was as if they were singing my pain, my memories, my longing, but also my hope. Songs like Sorry, She's in the Rain, and Time felt like a warm hand holding mine through the sadness. Day by day, the Rose helped me breathe again. Their music didn't erase the pain, but it gave me a way to live through it, to honor my love, to feel, to cry, and to smile again. I felt less alone. Today, I'm slowly healing, and as I prepare to see them live for the first time, I carry in my heart not only the joy of being a fan, but the deep gratitude for how their music helped me survive. Thank you for giving fans like me a chance to share. The Rose means everything to me. With love, Marlene. Oh, I just loved that, Kelly. It's something I think you and I said. Her line where she says, their music didn't erase the pain, but it gave me a way to live with it. You know, I feel like we talked about that when we did our deep dive of Take Me Down and the message in those lyrics.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think for me, I like that aspect about a lot of the message in their music is that it's not like saying, oh, just get over it, or the pain's going to go away, or what. I feel like they always recognize that pain might always be there. The scars, right? The tattoos of my scars as the deep tattoos, I think is the line in Take Me Down, right? It doesn't necessarily go away, but what you learn is to deal with it, to live with it, and to not let it break you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Marlene, for your touching story.
Now time for something ever so slightly different. So while we were in LA, Anne was feeling extra mean and decided the rest of the world should experience the horror that I experience every podcast. People, you know what we're on about. It's the would you rather question.
Hi, this is Anne from K-Rock Cast. I'm joined by two Black Roses. Can you share your name?
I'm Sabrina.
Sabrina.
I'm Marisol.
Marisol. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to do a fun Would You Rather challenge. We do these on the podcast quite a bit. Okay, you are going up with a battle of wits with Sassy Sammy. He is at his snarkiest, okay? The man needs a hamburger because he hasn't eaten in 5 days. Are you going to go to head with him in a battle of wits, or are you going to challenge Taegyum to an eating contest? Those are your choices. Who wants to go first?
So I tend to come up with replies after the fact, so I think the eating would be better for me.
You're going with the eating competition. So do you think you can hold your own with Taegyum? That man can eat.
I can try.
I say about Tay, he thinks about his next meal before he's had his current meal.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I respect that. That's me too. Okay, so you're gonna do that. How about you?
I do the eating one too.
Nobody's picking Sassy Sammy?
No,
Yeah.
this one has some serious sass. I'm surprised.
Oh, bring that sass out. You can knock him down a peg.
I'm here, but he's up here. I
Oh,
can't.
okay. So you think you can hold your own with Taegyum?
Yeah, I get pretty competitive.
I like
Yeah,
that.
so
Okay.
like I'll push
Do you have a
myself.
strategy? Do you have an eating strategy here?
I'm hitting the gym after.
Yeah.
I'm hitting the gym
You're just gonna be able, like, I can work everything else
Yes.
off. Okay, all right. Well, thank you, ladies. Enjoy the show. Hi, this is Anne from K-Rock Cast. I'm joined by Sarah from Broses Radio on Station Head. I feel like I'm here with a celebrity. Hi, Sarah. We love Broses Radio. Broses Radio invited us on Station Head for the launch of the World album.
Yeah.
Broses Radio is awesome. If you guys don't stream on Broses Radio on Station Head, I don't know what's wrong with you. It's the best station to stream on.
And we're on 24 hours and 7 days a week. All the time.
Yes, so it's a great way to support the Rose. So Sarah is here, and we're going to do 2 questions. We're going to start with the serious question, then we'll end with the fun one. So, Sarah, tell us how you found the Rose.
Honestly, it was pre-debut. I was watching a K-drama. It was The Entertainer with Ji-sung and Kang Min-hyuk from CN Blue.
Nice.
And
I happen to enjoy Kang Min-hyuk, so I share in
Did
that.
you use the term I enjoy?
I enjoy his drumming.
Oh, of course you enjoy his drumming. Obviously, that's exactly what you
Did you see
enjoy.
them when they were in the U.S.?
I saw them when they were in New York. They were incredible.
Yes.
Incredible.
Yes. I saw them in L.A. So long
And they
time
never get their
coming.
arse to England, apart from going to watch soccer matches, apparently.
You know, they took over 10 years to come back to the U.S.
Well,
so-
yeah, this is true.
But no, yeah, so in the drama, Do-jun and Ha-jun and Taegyum had a little small role in there.
Did I not know this?
Oh,
What
no, they-
drama is this?
It's a very small role, but, you know, it's called The Entertainer. And so it was comprised about, you know, making a band. So they were, like, auditioning.
Ah.
So they had a little small bit, but, like, they just struck me instantly. I'm like, okay, I need to find out more about them. Followed them on the Instagram, and then at some point they all debuted, and yeah, I've been here since the start. Like,
Sarah is an OG
She is
Black
OG.
Rose. We are talking to an OG Black Rose from pre-2017.
you know, once you get in, you can't leave. So
No, there's no escape. It's
How
a
did
bit
you
like
get
prison.
started on Station Head? How did you find Broses Radio? How'd that get started?
So Broses Radio was started by Tricky. So she and I have met through the tours. So like in 2018 to 2019, she and I were like, we didn't know each other, but we tour hopped and we happened to hit all the different stops. And, you know, she was promoting her fan account for Florida and I was promoting my stuff for LA. It's my fan account's The Rose International, but I focus on LA. So I was like trying to drum it up to do banners for LA. So like we connected. She decided to do Station Head. So I've been DJing since the beginning of Broses Radio. So yeah.
Love it. Okay, Sarah, we're going to wrap up with a fun one. You're in a zombie apocalypse.
Okay.
You have to pick one member of the Rose who is going to help you survive. Who are you picking and why?
Taegeum.
That was a
That
quick
was
answer.
really
there was
quick.
no thinking on that.
I mean, you are allowed clarifying questions. I drive her mad with clarifying questions.
Because he's in the gym all the time. Come on.
I know, this is
he's
true.
He's going to be fit.
He's going to be able to fight off those zombies, right?
I've seen his arms, so like, you know.
I mean, we've seen more than that in some of the latest content. Can we just say thank you to the editors? Thank you, Jack, for keeping that camera running while he was taking off his shirt.
He's fit. He's got the long legs, so he's going to be quicker to move.
Okay, that's a legit answer. And you came out with that quick. You didn't have to think about it.
Yeah.
Okay, I like it. I like it.
Sorry to the rest of them. Sorry, Doji.
Sorry, guys. The rest of you are going to get eaten by zombies. Sarah and Taegeum are they're going to survive.
We know this.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, listen and stream on Broses Radio on Station Head. Listen to K-Rock Cast. You can't go wrong.
So, Anne, do you want to read the next letter that we've received?
Yeah, absolutely, Kelly. Dear K-Rock Cast, in 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, when everything was in lockdown and leaving the house was not an option, I stumbled upon The Rose on YouTube through their KBS Culture Warehouse recordings and immediately fell in love with their music. That winter, my son, who had just turned 15, was struggling with depression, self-harm, and suicidal ideations. We took him to a pediatric psychiatric hospital where he spent close to a month. That month was one of the hardest of my life. Because of COVID, only one person could visit him for 1 hour a day. My husband and I took turns visiting, and some days my son would not even see us. When I was at my lowest and struggling to not let my own sorrows prevent me from being there for my son, the music of The Rose became my refuge. The lyrics, "It's better to be held than holding on," resonated deeply with me and became my mantra, enabling me to stand in the rain with my son and be the mom he needed. Today, my son is a happy and healthy 19-year-old thanks to the treatment, love, and support he received. I was blessed to see The Rose for the first time during the Heal Tour, where I sat front row in Washington, D.C. and cried tears of joy almost the whole concert. I was also privileged to have VVVIP in Atlanta during the Dawn to Dusk tour, where I shared this story with The Rose, a moment I will forever cherish. The song Childhood became extra special to me, and now I have a tattoo that symbolizes the merging of my childhood and the childhood of my children with the lyrics, "Shigani Hurado." I know I am just one of thousands of people who all have similar stories to how The Rose saved them. But I think that is a testament to just how special and magical they are as a group. I wish them many more years together, selfishly, so that I can continue to be part of their journey as a Black Rose. Adrian Ownby. P.S. I do have my son's permission to speak about his mental health journey, as he and we believe stories like his may help others. Thank you so much, Adrian. Wow,
Honestly,
that was powerful.
It's a beautiful story, and all the power to you. And you are a fantastic mummy bear. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, what a wonderful mother you are, Adrian, to provide your son the support, he desperately needed. So glad that he made it through and he's happy and he's healthy. But again, just a testament, so much that she said, right? She knows The Rose has done this for so many. I'm so glad, Adrian, that you got to share your story personally with the guys. I know when they hear these stories, it means so much to them.
And did you want to read the next one from Zachariah?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Zachariah. The Rose officially found me at a time that I was at my worst. I had known of them and checked out their releases before, but when Back to Me came out, that's when they finally fully reeled me in. It occurred at the same time I had a very severe herniated disc that affected my ability to walk and move in general. As time went on, more disc material kept coming out and I lost my ability to move more and more until the point just turning over in bed became too hard to do. The entire time as I was bedbound and in massive amounts of pain, I just kept listening to Lifeline to keep my sanity and keep myself stable. Having them as my new hyperfixation gave me something happy in my life during all the negative and gave me something to hold on to. I'm not sure what it would have been like without them, since I would have been stuck in a bed in pain 24/7 all by myself, just constantly depressed, rather than finding new songs to listen to, new things to watch, finding other Black Roses online, etc. Eventually, I had to get surgery urgently, or else I would have ended up incontinent. It was hard getting any emergency rooms to listen to me, as I'm autistic and don't show that I'm in pain very well. So no one would take me seriously until I got lucky going to a different emergency room where a neurosurgeon from the better hospital in my state was on call there, who checked me out and sent me for surgery to his main hospital that same night. It's been almost a year and a half now since the surgery, and I'm doing a lot better now. I can walk a lot more than I did before, and my pain level isn't constantly at a 10 out of 10 anymore. And I still have the Rose to help me look forward to the things anytime things get tough again. I thank them so much for that. They have no idea how much they mean to me. Oh, Zachariah, that's so sweet.
I hope you're doing all right, Zachariah, and things are improving.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're doing better, Zachariah, and I'm so glad that the Rose helped you through. And Lifeline, what a great song to really kind of focus on. The message in that song is great.
It really is. It is one of their best songs, and I'm not just saying it because I love it. And now time for something ever so slightly different. So while we were in LA, Anne was feeling extra mean and decided the rest of the world should experience the horror that I experience every podcast. People, you know what we're on about. It's the would you rather question.
Hiya ladies, how are you?
Good, and yourself?
I'm not too bad. So what's your name?
Laura?
Hiya. Right, so we're going to do a would you rather question. Are you ready for this?
Yep.
Honestly, I'm not sure if this is a lesser of two evils. It's an Anne question, this is all I'm saying. She's mean. So, would you rather deal with 5 toddler dojuns or 5 hajuns telling the worst dad jokes in the world ever? Which one would you rather deal with?
5 toddler dojuns.
See? This is what I said as well. Why would you do that?
See, I work at a school, so...
There we go. That's it. Exactly. That's the answer we wanted. Thank you very much, sweetheart.
Nice to be here.
Thank you. Enjoy the show.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Kelly from K-Rockcast, and who have I got joining me?
Hi, I'm Charlotte.
Hello, Charlotte. It's lovely to meet you. Now, you spotted me a mile away, didn't you? Because you heard the accent.
I did indeed.
See, you always find an English person wherever you go.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Right, so we're going to do a would you rather question.
All right.
So let's see how you do with this one. Who would you rather have on a 10-hour car journey, and what would you do in a 10-hour car journey?
Oh, gosh. Okay, that's... I'm between 2. Because
Yeah.
Ulsan obviously, yaps the most.
That's true.
I yap a lot.
Okay.
So that would be fun conversation-wise, but I feel like my taste in music would go better with Dojun.
Right.
So But considering that I am a yapper, I do have to say I'll go with Ulsan.
You'd go with Ulsan. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I get that. I mean, but that's 10 hours worth. Could you cope with 10 hours worth?
Absolutely.
Are you sure? Yeah. The man can talk for not even the country, the planet.
It's going to be a battle.
Hold on, mate.
Who
Shut
gets
up.
the last word?
I'm talking. Shut up. Let's have this.
Indeed.
Thank you very much, sweetheart. Enjoy the show.
All right, Kelly, why don't you lead us into our next submission?
Found the Rose very organically through Spotify in 2022, and they have healed me ever since. Their lyrics are complex and open-ended. It's the type of poetry that keeps floating back into your mind with new interpretations as we go through the ups and downs and sideways of life. For example, the first verse of Black Rose references the rain theme that is so pervasive throughout their discography and comforts those going through silent struggles described as drowning below the shallow water. As someone who was previously in music as a childhood hobby, I was curious to learn more about the Rose from a technical perspective. I started learning violin when I was 5 years old and played in a symphony orchestra until I went to college. I took a long hiatus as I focused on grad school in the early stages of my career, and also because my apartment is not conducive to practicing acoustic instruments. In the spring of 2024, I was going through a lot of turmoil due to several problems and were all largely out of my control. Because of an injury, I wasn't able to run, which was my usual outlet. Music was healing as it was always been, but I decided to take one step further and better understand exactly how the Rose creates their sound in a band. I chose bass because it was similarities to the violin. The strings are E, A, D, J. It's G, D, A, E on the violin. I also felt like I had the least understanding of the bass guitar as a musical instrument and its role in the overall composition of a song. My first day teaching myself bass after picking it up from the store was actually 1 year before World was released. I learned by watching videos on YouTube and practicing, and my first song was ILY. After following tutorials and training my ear for this world of low notes and the bass clef, I was able to put together a bass part for some of my favourite songs by The Rose and with some solo work, and it's been deeply healing. I also picked up drums for fun because my husband bought an electric drum kit. At first, I thought it was a chunky eyesore in the living room. However, I started to mess around with it and I got hooked. I practiced more to learn the building blocks of beat patterns and rented studios to play on acoustic sets and learned some of the Rose's songs by ear and by watching Hajime Focus fan cams. Playing drums has improved my rhythm on bass and also helps me shift my outlook when I'm stressed over something on my mind. I'm grateful for all the hard times that the Rose has gotten me through and continues to get me through, as well as the inspiration to get back into music as my own hobby. The Rose's music is such a blessing for the world. Thank you and take care, Edna.
Loved this on so many levels, Kelly. One, I just really loved her more kind of technical background in music and her kind of sharing her story. And I follow her on Instagram and on YouTube. I love, shout out Edna if you're listening. I love watching your videos and just seeing your progression of learning both of those instruments over the last year. I find it very motivating and inspiring because I enjoy watching people who are just continuing to try to grow their skills in something that they're doing and not being scared to kind of show the world the imperfections of them learning it. And I've just seen Edna's growth in playing both of those instruments over time. So I want to shout out to you, Edna, for keeping up, with it, because it can be frustrating when you're just learning something. I liked her line at the beginning where she says, it's the type of poetry that keeps floating back into your mind with new interpretations as we go through the ups and downs and sideways of life. I loved that about their lyrics.
Yeah, it is. It's very true as well. There's so many different ways that you could take all of the lyrics and how. And I'm sure our interpretations that we give are completely different to what was originally in the writer's head. But that's the beauty of words and always has been.
All right, Kelly, we have another submission from someone that we know pretty well. Why don't you read our next one?
We do. Before I start this, if I start laughing, I apologise in advance. Raluca, my darling, I love you. You are batshit crazy. This is all I'm saying. And that's probably the reason I love you. Listeners, you will understand as I begin this magical journey into the mind of Raluca. Hello, gorgeous ladies. My story of finding the rose is a bit different than what other browsers have, because I didn't find them when I needed them the most. I have found the rose when I started a new chapter in my life. To me, they represent a new era, a new beginning. And it was August 2023. I had recently moved into my new house and I was lying on the sofa scrolling on Instagram and stumbled upon a reel with a music video of Back to Me. I loved the sound of that and searched the song on YouTube Music. When that song ended, Cure followed. I loved that song when I checked to see who was playing. I was surprised to see it was the same band who played Back to Me. So I decided to check all of their songs. The third song I listened to was Red, and that's when my obsession with the rose started to bloom. I decided to learn more about the band, and I soon found out that they had a platform for their fans called the Rosarium, and I immediately joined that. The day I entered the Garden of the Roses is the day I became a black rose, and that was the 11th of August 2023. The rose didn't save my life, but they did open my horizon. I was a very isolated person who didn't go out of the house much, more like at all, mainly because I don't have friends to go out with. All of my best friends left the country in search of a better life. And so finding the rose for me meant finding new friends with whom I could talk to on a regular basis. The rose came along with the ultimate gift of friendship. I no longer feel alone since I entered their Garden of Roses. I now have the best reason to get out of the house, their concerts. So I travel the world and I meet wonderful people. I guess I could say the rose gave me the WRLD. Thank you for the opportunity, your patience, and most importantly, your podcast. There you go, Raluca. You know, that's it. Just get it in there. You know, bit of praise. We don't mind. Thank you. However, Raluca being Raluca, can't just leave it at one very lovely email. No. I am going to read part 2. Lucy, I'm back! Let me tell you about my first... No, seriously, that is how the email starts. I love this woman. I do.
We're not just adding that in for fun.
We're not. It literally is. It literally starts. Lucy! I don't know who Lucy is. Who's Lucy? Does anybody know who Lucy is?
It's from what? I mean, I thought it was a reference from I Love Lucy.
It is I Love Lucy. I am being ridiculous. I do know what he's from. Let me start again. Right, okay. Let me start again. Right, ready? Let's go. Lucy, I'm back! Let me tell you about the second concert of The Rose. I just saw them in Budapest the night before and I was on my way to Vienna for my second concert. The problem was that I haven't slept all night after the concert because I'd got food poisoning. So my night after my first concert ever was spent over the toilet, trying not to vomit out my intestines. Looking back now, I realise how lucky I was for the poisoning not to kick in while I was at the concert. Anyway, so here I was, sleepless and with my stomach feeling like I swallowed rocks on my way to the train station. Now, those who know me know how much I hate to ride trains or the subway or buses outside of my country for the constant fear that I will have missed the stop. Well, this time I wasn't going to miss it, but rather I almost got off the train too early because I saw a sign in the station that we were in something that said something Vienne right next to it. And I thought, this must be my stop. But thank God I tripped over my luggage while running to the nearest exit. And before I could gather my pride and my luggage off the floor, the doors closed. Thank God, or I would have still been lost in something Vienna. You can't even imagine how scared I was when I saw the doors close. But luckily I found a conductor who told me we still hadn't reached our destination. Fast forward to the day of the concert and I'm waiting at VIP 3 and I'm at the entrance half an hour early just to make sure. All hell broke loose when I realised I'd left my ID back at the hotel and I needed that to enter the actual venue. Mind you, this was 30 minutes before we had the entry to the venue. If you're not at the venue at the designated time, you risk losing your VIP experience. Luckily, my hotel was 8 minutes away by car from the venue. So yes, I did make it in time with 5 minutes left to spare while the driver's POS didn't work properly, so the payment wasn't going through and I had no cash on me. I think I lost 5 minutes just to make the bloody payment. But do you think that was all? No! I had misplaced my ticket once I entered the venue. I had it with me when I entered, but when I had to show my ticket again inside, ta-da, it was gone. And so was my rose beam. You may ask, where, you may ask? Well, I found them after the show in a bag I left in the wardrobe. So, you see, for my first VIP3 experience, I had to pass through food poisoning, a maze from Budapest all the way to Vienna, one beautiful bruise on my leg from when I stumbled upon my luggage, one malfunctioning POS, and 3 heart attacks I had when I realised I don't have my ID, my ticket, and my rose beam, which I bought the night before in Budapest, so I barely got to use it. But eventually, nothing would stop me from enjoying the sunlight. The end. Thank you again for your patience. I wrote you. Raluca.
This is the craziest story. And like, I mean, I could just so relate to just the sheer panic of all of these things that keep happening to Daniela in her quest to get to her VIP3. And it's like the thought of missing out on that opportunity because they will shut the doors and you're not getting in to go see them. Like, I could just only imagine what that panic must have been like.
Honestly, knowing the woman like I do, and the fact that we have traipsed round Paris at about midnight before now together, I'm not surprised, to be honest. I adore her. I absolutely adore her. And when I haven't just read it because I know her. I laughed so much. I had to read it about 5 times. And if you have any comprehension about how much editing I've had to do to be able to read the actual email out without laughing, you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, that is a hilarious story. I hope she told the guys that in her experience, because I'm sure they would have died laughing at like all the hoops she had to go through just to get there with them.
I don't know, but hopefully if they'll know now.
Okay, Kelly, this is my favorite time.
I know.
You know what my favorite time is?
Would you rather time, also referred to as how do I know it Kelly time.
Yes. How to be evil to Kelly time, because Anne likes to be evil.
Yeah. I don't know why I talked to you, to be perfect.
Ready?
No, I'm not ready. Don't do this to me.
Okay.
Well, go on then.
Would you rather be locked in a tiny elevator with Dojun at his most hyper energy level possible? Okay, this is like him on a scale of 1 to 10. He's like 100 in terms of his hyperactivity. And you're in this tiny elevator and you're stuck.
Okay.
Or you're sharing a bunk bed. You're sharing a bunk bed with Taegyum. But he snores like a chainsaw all night.
Oh, no. No. Why would... No.
Oh, I picked the lesser of 2 evils this time, didn't I? Don't these 2 things sound horrid?
Yes. Yes.
And I love them both.
I know.
I mean, no offense, Dojun and Taegyum.
Why? Why would you do this to... Anne, why do you do this to me? Seriously, woman, why? Why do you do this?
Do I have such a twisted mind that I can continue to come up with more scenarios
all the time? You never stop. It's just like, hold on a minute, I've just had this great idea. This is the new way of torturing Kel today. Yeah, thanks for that.
It's
amazing. Thank you. I love you. Mwah.
It is.
Oh God, why? Right. So clarifying questions time. Come on, you know me.
We always have clarifying
We always have
questions
clarifying
from Kelly
questions.
on
It's
K-Rockcast.
the law.
That's
It is
for
the
sure.
law. This has to happen. So, clarifying question number 1. Is the lift, i.e. the
Okay.
elevator, because I'm refusing to pick up even more Americanisms than I have already. I actually refer to...
That's so true.
No, just stop it. It's so terrible. My British friends are now going, what are you on about? And you're spending way too much time with Americans. It's just, I know, I'm so sorry.
I think that's hysterical.
Not
That is
hysterical.
hysterical.
It's not
Yeah,
hysterical
the lift.
at all. Anyway,
The
so
lift.
the lift. How big is the lift? Are we talking it's like industrial size, designed to move pallets? Or are we talking one of these that's supposed to be able to move 8 people and really you can only get 3 in?
You can get a maximum of 3 people in this elevator. It is really, really small. Dojun has had a lot of sour jellies. He is at his most hyper energy level possible. He's just going to be bouncing off the walls of this elevator.
Great. That's nice of you. And can I smother Tay if he starts snoring too much?
You always want to invoke violence. No, violence is not allowed in any of our scenarios.
Come on, seriously. If you're sharing a room with somebody who started snoring that much. Oh, that's the other thing. Have I got headphones?
No headphones.
Can I
no pillows?
We're
in the same hotel we were in. Do you remember?
Up and stick it in my ears.
Do you remember the old shady hotel of the last Would You Rather where Sammy was next door or Hajun was next door?
Nice.
It's the same shady hotel.
It's
now you're sharing a room with Tay in a bunk bed and he's snoring. So there's no pillows, there's no headphones. You have to endure him snoring like a chainsaw. I'm sorry, Tay, but doesn't he look like a snorer? Don't you think he does? I had this whole thing. I was like, who do I put in this scenario when I was planning it? And I was like, who looks like they snore? And I was like, Tay, don't you think he does?
You're evil. Has nobody ever told you this before? You are evil. Tay, I'm sorry. She's been
I hope
you now. Oh my God, I hope
they never listen to
this. Right, okay.
Don't you think he looks like he snores?
I am.
Is that just me?
I am not saying
Listeners.
either way. I am not saying. I am not.
Listeners, I need validation. This is the side would you not side thing.
This is the
side. Tell us
thing.
in the comments, who do you think? Yeah, who do you think, listeners, is a snorer out of the guys? Don't you think it'd be Taekyum?
Why do you
say that look to him?
Why?
I don't know. He has that look.
It's
He looks
just
like he
that look.
snores.
Right, okay. Right, so another clarifying question. Who's on the top bunk and who's on the bottom bunk?
Oh, I gotta think. He's on the bottom and you're on the top.
Fuck. So I couldn't literally stick my finger up and start tapping his feet to keep him awake.
No, he's on the bottom and he sleeps. He's a sound sleeper. There's no waking him up.
Now, the problem is I'm a really light sleeper, so I would not sleep through this at all.
No, you're not getting a wink.
God. Right, okay. So who did you pick?
Okay, this is something to know about me. I hate people who snore. Like I would figure out like I said there's no violence. I think it would drive me to violence.
How come you're
right?
No. How come you're no. How come you're allowed to be driven to violence, but I'm not? I asked up front whether I was allowed to be driven to violence, and you just go, "Oh no, I can't cope with it." So no, I'd just be driven to violence and smother him. That's not on, missus.
Oh my gosh.
Not on.
I do not think I could tolerate him snoring like a chainsaw all night. So I am gonna go with Doge. Oh, wouldn't it be? See? Oh, and he makes the little bubble sounds. Boop, 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 like...
At least, as long as he's not a teeth grinder. Ooh, teeth grinders are the worst. Oh, no.
And
No.
you know the people who snore and then they stop for a second and you think you have reprieve.
Well, I sleep
and you
apnea and
start
they do
to
that.
start
Do
again.
that thing and they go. You're just like, are you dead? Are you dead?
So I'm going with my man Dojun in this elevator. Even if he's annoyingly hyper, I would rather deal with that than snoring all night.
Okay. You won't allow me to smother Tay. Damn.
No, we can't smother Tay.
Oh, can I not roll him over so he stops snoring?
No, he's not going to stop.
Oh, he's a multifunctional snorer, is he? So it doesn't matter what position he's in, he snores.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
He just starts to make other sounds.
Jesus.
I hope we don't get sued for slander if he hears this. Here comes the email from Windfall, Kelly.
I did not do this. It's her. She did it. She's the one that set all this up. It's not me.
Clive is sending that email, cease and desist letter.
Hey, we know they've just spelled K-Rock wrong. That's the only reason we've not got one.
Oh, Tay, I hope you never listen to this.
Yeah, I hope so too. Okay, I'm gonna go with the hyperactive Tigger in the lift. And hope and
God, Tigger!
And hope and pray that when he's bouncing up and down, that my end is swift and the cable snaps and we plummet. So I for it long.
Oh gosh. Tigger. I remember you referred to him as Tigger in a previous episode, which is so fitting, kind of his energy
fitting.
level.
But
right?
then again, he was with Christopher Robin on the day.
Oh, that's right. Oh, listeners, if you don't remember that reference, I don't remember what. No, it the Into the Moon episode where we talked about.
Yeah,
that was the Would You Rather in that episode where we talked about.
It might have had something to do with fashion choices in Paris, where you really need to get fashion choices right.
Yeah, and Sammy looked like Christopher Robin in his outfit, and you called Dojun Tigger.
Yeah, I'm not.
Oh, that was so funny. Yeah, that was a funny episode. Listeners, you got to check that one out if you haven't yet. I think that's Into the Moon.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it looks like Kelly and I are both going to be locked in a tiny elevator with Dojun after he's had a lifetime supply of sour jellies and is at his most hyper energy level. We both feel like that is a much better choice than poor Taegyum, who snores like a chainsaw. We are not sharing a bunk bed with that man. And sorry, Tay, if I am slandering you by saying you look like someone that snores. I'm sure you probably don't, but, keeping my eye on you because you got that look to you. Sorry. and sorry for anyone who is a snorer who is a listener. Please don't send us hate mail. All right, listeners, we would love to tell us what you would choose. Put it down in the comments. Let us know. Join us next time as we have a new type of episode content. Kelly, I'm super excited about this episode. We are going to be joined by Cheryl from Wusong's Wardrobe Instagram account. Cheryl is a fashionista, and we have a fun episode planned. We are going to be diving into the various styles and looks from the Rose throughout the years. So, Kelly, this is going to be so fun. I can't wait. Get the boiler ready. There's going to be some roasting going on. I guarantee it.
Now, if anybody watches or has watched E-television, you'll know the fact that once upon a time there used to be a lady on there called Miss Rivers, and I love me a bit of Joan, and I must admit I kind of fall into that trap every now and again, mixed with a little bit of one of my favourite ladies, Kelly Osbourne. So God help you.
It's going to be an awesome episode. So look forward to that, listeners. Please rate our podcast. Leave us comments about this episode. We would love to hear your feedback. Follow us on social media. On Instagram, TikTok, X, and YouTube, we are at KROK_cast all across the board. Email us at krock.cast@gmail.com.
Click here to subscribe.
And don't forget to check out our website. We're making some new improvements on the website, so definitely give that a review. krockcast.com. All right, see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.